Producing and distributing electricity. What is the national grid? The network of pylons and cables which covers the country. What does it do? Takes electricity from power stations to homes. What is the aim of the power station? To convert energy into electricity. What happens in the first stage? The boiler uses a fuel to produce heat, which then generates steam. What does the steam then do? Drives the blade of the turbine. What is the rotating movement of the turbine then converted to? Electricity by the generator. Why are most power stations inefficient? Usually more than half the energy is wasted to the sound and heat. What is the advantages of fossil fuels? Readily available. What are the disadvantages of fossil fuels? Causes acid rain and produces carbon dioxide. What are the advantages of biomass? Renewable, easy to produce. What are the disadvantages of biomass? A lot is required. Solar and wind power. What is passive solar heating? When energy from the sun is used to heat something directly. How can glass help warm things up? It allows heat and light through, which is absorbed by objects in the room. Why can the light pass through windows? The light from the sun has a short wavelength. Why can't heat from objects inside the room pass through the windows? Heated things in a room emit infrared radiation of a longer wavelength. What energy do wind turbines convert? Kinetic into electricity. What are the advantages of wind turbines? Cheap to run, no pollution waste, and it's renewable. What are the disadvantages of wind turbines? 150 wind turbines are equivalent to one coal-fired power station. It has visual pollution, noise pollution, and is expensive to set up. Using the sun's energy. Where do photocells generate electricity from? Sunlight. What kind of current do photocells generate? Direct current. What does direct current mean? It means the circuit always flows the same way around the circuit. What are photocells made from? Silicon. Due to silicon being a semiconductor, what happens when sunlight falls on a cell? The silicon atoms absorb energy, knocking loose electrons, which then flow around a circuit. What does the current and power output of a photocell depend on? Surface area inside of the light, distance from the light and source. What are the advantages of photocells? They're sturdy, low maintenance, last a long time, renewable, doesn't pollute environment, power cables aren't necessary. What are the disadvantages of photocells? No sunlight means there's no power. What can a single curved mirror be used as? Solar oven. What can a large curved mirror be used as? Generate steam to produce electricity. What is electromagnetic induction? The creation of a voltage in a wire which is experiencing a change in magnetic field. What is the dynamo effect? Transforming kinetic energy into electrical energy. What situations do you get EM induction? An electrical conductor moves through a magnetic field. The magnetic field through an electrical conductor changes. What happens if the direction of movement is reversed? The voltage current will be reversed too. What can be done to get a bigger voltage and current? Increase the strength of the magnet, increase the number of turns in the coil, increase the speed of movement. When generators rotate a coil in a magnetic field, how often does the coil swap direction? Every half a turn. What does this mean the generators produce? An alternate current. What does turning the coil faster produce? More peaks, higher voltage and higher current. What is the frequency of AC electrical supplies? The number of cycles per second. What is it measured in? Hertz. Supplying electricity efficiently. What is electricity transformed to before distribution? High voltage. What is the voltage set to? 400,000. Why increase the voltage rather than increase the current? It's cheaper as less energy is wasted as heat. What do you need to increase your voltage? Step up transformers. What are used to bring the voltage down in order to make it safer? Step down transformers. What is the word equation for total energy input? Total energy input equals useful energy output plus waste energy output. What is the word equation for efficiency? Efficiency equals useful energy output divided by total energy input times 100. Power. What is electrical power? The amount of energy converted per second. What is power measured in? Watts or kilowatts? What does the power rating of an appliance depend on? Voltage and current it is using. What is the word equation? Power equals voltage times current. What is the word equation for energy supplied? Energy supplied equals power times time. And for cost? Cost equals number of units times price per unit. What is off-peak electricity? Electricity supplied during the night, which is often cheaper. What are the advantages of off-peak electricity? Cost effective as power stations can't be turned off. cheaper for consumers. What are the disadvantages of off-peak electricity? A slightly increased risk of fire. Time may be inconvenient. The greenhouse effect, global warming and climate change. Which wavelengths pass through the atmosphere quite easily? Visible light and radio waves. What does the Earth absorb from the Sun? Short wavelength EM radiation from the Sun. What does this do? Warms up the Earth's surface up, emits some of the radiation back into space. What is most of the radiation emitted from Earth? Longer wavelength infrared radiation. What is a lot of it absorbed by? Atmospheric gases. Where do these gases then re-radiate heat? In all directions. What stops the Earth from losing heat at night? The atmosphere acting as an insulating layer. What is this known as? The greenhouse effect. How have humans increased CO2? More energy used, deforestation. How have humans increased methane? Cattle farming, landfill. How have humans increased water vapor? Global warming, power stations. What is the rise in CO2 causing? Global warming. What can changes in temperature affect? The weather. What would the increase of warm water do? Increase hurricanes. What are the human causes of temperature change? Rising CO2 levels, soot and gas. What are the natural causes of temperature change? Ash and gas from volcanoes reflect sun radiation back into space. Our orbit changes around the sun. Nuclear radiation. What does nuclear radiation cause? Ionization. What happens when an unstable nucleus decays? It gives off one or more kinds of nuclear radiation. What do radioactive materials give out over time? Nuclear radiation. What are the three kinds of radiation? Alpha, beta and gamma. What does radiation cause atoms to do? Lose or gain electrons, turning atoms into ions. When are positive ions formed? When are negative ions formed? When atoms gain electrons. What happens when radiation enters human cells? It can ionize molecules and damage DNA. What does this cause? Mutations in the cells leading to cancer. High doses of radiation can cause cells to die. What are the characteristics of an alpha particle? Relatively big, heavy and slow moving. What can alpha particles be stopped by? Paper or skin. They are strongly ionizing. What does this mean? They bash into loads of atoms and knock electrons off them before they slow down. What are beta particles? Electrons. What are the characteristics of beta particles? Small and fast. What are beta particles stopped by? A thin sheet of metal. How much are they ionizing? Moderately. What are gamma rays? A type of EM radiation. What can they be stopped by? Thick concrete. How much are they ionizing? Weekly. How do you identify a type of radiation? Place different penetrating materials between radiation source and detector. What is alpha radiation used in? Smoke detectors. What are in smoke detectors? A weak source of alpha radiation close to two electrodes. How do they work? The radiation ionizes the air and a current flows between the electrodes. The smoke absorbs radiation, stopping current and sounding the alarm. What can beta radiation be used in? Traces and thickness gauges. If a radioactive source is injected into a patient, how is the progress around the body monitored? Using an external radiation detector. When the computer converts the readings to a TV display, what does this show? If the body is working properly. Why do doctors use beta and gamma emitters as traces? So radiation passes out the body. How is thickness control set up? You direct radiation through an object and put an ion on the other side, which is connected to a control unit. What does it mean if the amount of detected radiation goes down? It means the object is too thick. What does the control unit then do? Pinches the rollers up to make it thinner. What are the medical uses of gamma radiation? Treats cancer, sterilize medical instruments. How does gamma radiation treat cancer? Has to be given a certain dosage and directed carefully to kill cancer cells without killing normal cells. How does gamma radiation sterilize medical instruments? They kill all microbes. Nuclear power. In nuclear fission, how does it produce the heat to make steam? The atoms in the nuclear fuel are split in two, releasing lots of heat energy. What does the steam do? Drive the turbine and generator. What coolant is used? Water. What are the advantages of nuclear power? Doesn't produce CO2. A lot of energy is released. It's cheap. What are the disadvantages of nuclear power? Expensive to build, maintain and protect. Takes a long time to start up. Processing uranium causes pollution, and radioactive waste is hard to dispose of. How is plutonium made? The used uranium fuel is reprocessed, leading uranium and plutonium. What can plutonium be used in? Nuclear bombs. Radioactive material danger. How do you stay safe with radiation? Keep in labeled lead box. Put away ASAP to decrease exposure time. No skin contact. Use tongs to carry. Avoid looking at it. What do industrial nuclear workers wear? Full protective suits. What do lead-lined suits, lead concentrated barriers, and thick lead screens protect workers from? Gamma rays. What is used to carry out tasks in highly radioactive areas? Remote controlled robot arms. What is low level waste? Waste that can be disposed of easily. What is high level waste? Highly dangerous waste that usually stays radioactive for tens of thousands of years. How is it stored? Sealed into glass blocks, which is sealed in a metal canister. Where can these be buried? Somewhere geologically stable, nowhere near water or deep underground. Usually kept on site. The solar system. What's an ellipse? Planets and objects orbiting the Sun in slightly elongated circles. What are the inner planets in our own solar system? Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. What are the outer planets? Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. What's between the inner and outer planets? The Asteroid Belt. What makes planets orbit the Sun and moons to orbit the planets? Gravitational attraction. What force causes circular motion? Centripetal force. Asteroids. What did the rocks between Jupiter and Mars leave due to Jupiter's gravitational attraction interfering? Millions of asteroids. Where do they orbit? The Sun between the orbits of Jupiter and Mars. What are meteors? Rocks of dust that enter the Earth's atmosphere. As they burn, as they pass through the atmosphere, what is this known as? Shooting star. What is a meteorite? When a meteor crashes to the Earth's surface. What happens when a large meteor hits? Starts fires, throws hot rocks and dust in the air, can block out sunlight, creates craters. How do we tell if asteroids have collided with Earth in the past? Big craters, layers of unusual elements in rocks. Comets. What are comets? Balls of rock, dust and ice which orbit the Sun in elongated ellipse. Where do they come from? objects orbiting the sun way beyond the planets. What happens when comets approach the sun? Its ice melts, leaving a bright tail of gas and debris which can be millions of kilometers long. They also speed up due to the sun's gravitational pull. NEOs. What did NEO stand for? Near Earth objects. What are NEOs? Asteroids are comets which might be on a collision course with Earth. What do astronomers use to find and monitor NEOs? Powerful telescopes, satellites. What can they do once they've found one? They calculate the object's trajectory. How could we deflect a NEO? Explode a bomb at the NEO. The moon. What do scientists believe about the formation of the moon? That it was formed when another planet collided side on it with Earth. What happened during the collision? The dense iron of the two planets merged to form Earth's core. What happened to the less dense material? Ejected as really hot dust and rocks which orbited the Earth and internally came together to form the moon. What evidence is there? Moon has lower density than Earth. Earth has a big core, whereas Moon doesn't. Few low melting point substances on Moon, suggesting the Moon was formed from hot material. Beyond the solar system. What galaxy are we in? The Milky Way. How many galaxies does the universe have? More than 1 billion. How far is 1 light year? 2.46 times 10 to the power of 12 kilometers. How far is the closest star after the Sun to us? 4.2 light years away. When does a star explode? When it's used most of its fuel. What happens once it's exploded? It becomes dense. Sometimes it's so dense that it becomes a black hole. What are the features of a black hole? Large mass, small volume, high density, and not visible. Exploring the universe. How long would it take to send a manned spacecraft to Mars? At least a couple of years. What would be the problem? Lots of fuel would be needed. How to keep astronauts healthy and alive. Lots of oxygen, water and food needed. Keeping air clean and temperature right. Spacecraft would have to be shield radiation. What are the advantages of unmanned probes? They don't need food, oxygen or water, withstand conditions which humans can't. More instruments can be fitted, cheaper and safer. What are the disadvantages of unmanned probes? Can't think for themselves, can't do maintenance or repair. How is collected information sent back to Earth? Data is beamed back or physically brought to Earth. Origin of the universe. What evidence is there that the universe is expanding? Galaxies are moving away from each other. What do we find when we look at light from distant galaxies? The frequencies are all lower than they should be. They've shifted to the red end of the spectrum. What is this known as? Redshift. What does measurement of the redshift suggest? The distant galaxies are moving away quickly. What do more distant galaxies have? Greater redshift. What is cosmic background radiation? Low frequency microwave radiation coming from all directions and all parts of the universe. In the Big Bang Theory, where was all the matter to begin with? Squashed into small space. What then happened? It exploded and the universe started expanding. How old is the universe? On estimate, 14 billion years old. Origin of the universe. Initially, what do stars form from? From clouds of dust and gas. What does the forces of the gravity do? Makes the gas and dust spiral in together to form a protostar. What has gravitational energy been converted into? Heat energy, so temperature rises. What happens when the temperature gets high enough? Hydrogen nuclei undergo thermonuclear fusion to form helium nuclei and gives out heat and light. A star is now formed. What does it enter? A long stable period where heat created by the nuclear fission provides an outward pressure to balance the force of gravity. What is it called? The main sequence star. How long does this last? Several billions of years. What happens when the hydrogen begins to run out? The star swells into a red giant. What happens to the star when it's medium small sized? Becomes unstable and ejects its outer layer of dust and gas as a planetary nebula. What does this leave behind? A hot, dense, solid core which cools down and fades away. What if it's a big star? Forms red supergiants glowing bright again as they undergo more fusion. When do they explode in a supernova? They expand and contract several times, forming a heavier elements in various nuclear reactions, then explode into a supernova. What does an exploding supernova throw out? The outer layers of dust and gas into space. What does this leave? A very dense core called a neutron star. What will happen if the star is big enough? Become a black hole. Galileo and Copernicus. What did most ancient Greek astronomers believe? That the sun, moon, and planets all orbited this Earth in perfect circles. What was this known as? The Ptolemaic model and the Geocentric model. When was it replaced by the Copernican model? It's in the 1600s. What does it state? That the Earth and planets all orbit the Sun, which is the centre of the universe, in perfect circles. Well, when was it first introduced? In a book by Copernicus in 1543. What was the model known as? The Heliocentric Model. What evidence did Galileo find out in 1610 for the Copernican model? He observed Jupiter and saw stars around it. He then observed it again and saw that they hadn't moved away from Jupiter. He realized these were moons orbiting Jupiter. Also, he noticed that Venus had faces. What do current models show? That the planets in our solar system orbit the Sun. The orbits are elliptical, not circular, and the Sun isn't at the center of the universe.